Hey friends, welcome to the School of Hard Knocks with Darcie, a place where we become unstuck from trauma and grounded in our healing. I'm your host, Darcie, and I'm a proud multi-graduate of the School of Hard Knocks. Life has a way of teaching us lessons we never asked for, but here we take those lessons and turn them into healing, strength, and self-leadership. I'm so glad you're here. Let's dive in.
Just a quick reminder. This podcast shares personal stories and lived experiences. It's not therapy. It's not counseling or legal advice. If you need professional help, please reach out to a licensed provider. Hey, School of Hard Knocks, welcome back. Class is in session. I am here with our Rebuilt series. We are currently doing our season in blooming, and I am here with Tanya Ward. She is our guest today. So welcome to the School of Hard Knocks, Tanya. It's so nice to have you.
Yeah, thanks so much, Darcie. I'm excited for this conversation and looking forward to see where it goes.
Yes, me too. Well, let me introduce you guys to Tanya. Tanya is a structured nervous system recalibration leader who helps midlife women exit prolonged survival mode and return to a grounded, steady way of living. Her work focuses on the biological impact of chronic stress, caregiving, and over responsibility, patterns that leave the body braced, fatigued, and unable to fully reset. With over 25 years of experience supporting women's well-being, Tanya integrates nervous system science, somatic regulation, and practical life restructuring into a clear step-by-step recalibration process. Her approach is not about quick fixes or surface level insight. It is a structured method designed to lower baseline stress activation, restore internal stability, and rebuild self-trust over time. She says her work is grounded in one core principle. When the nervous system feels safe, clarity, energy, and resilience naturally return. I absolutely love that. I feel like that's relatable in my life, and I'm sure so many of our listeners here. So this is going to be a great conversation to have. Take me back a little bit and tell us a little bit about what was going on in your life before you decided to become this incredible, wonderful coach of a person.
Oh, thank you for that.
You're
So,
welcome.
my story started probably about 10 to 12 years ago, and I'm sure a lot of your listeners, whether they're male or female, can identify with this. But I was at a point where everything was looking good in my life from the outside. I had a healthy marriage. I had an amazing daughter. I was running a successful bodywork practice, doing all of the things. But underneath, I was constantly running on empty. I was trying to hold everything together for everyone and keep everyone okay. And the result was that I was feeling like I was losing my edge, losing my sense of self, and really I was quietly collapsing. And to make matters worse, if I'm really being honest with myself, is that my baseline to begin with wasn't awesome because I hadn't really fully dealt with earlier patterns, trauma, and most importantly, was the way I had learned to overfunction. And so I was already carrying more than I realized when my daughter, who was about 12, had really started to struggle. She was at that point of her life where she was coming into her gifts, trying to figure out who she was, where she belonged in the world, and she was barely holding on. And I did what so many mothers do is I chose her. I poured everything into supporting her emotionally, physically, mentally. I was putting all of my energy into the egg. And because of that, there wasn't enough time or energy for both of us. And I made sure that above all, she was okay. And I remember many sleepless nights laying there worrying, thinking, and trying to figure out. And what I didn't realize is that I was trying to solve this in ways that were keeping my system and inadvertently hers in the same pattern of stress survival activation. So that's what really drew me into that. And, I found myself at a point that I was constantly tense. My neck and shoulders felt like rocks. My jaw was clenched, even when times were quiet or I was on vacation. And I couldn't turn off the mental looping. And there was always this undercurrent of there's something I should be doing or there's something that I'm missing, even when things were quiet. And what I know now is that I was living in what I now call midlife survival mode.
Wow, I think that that is so relatable to so many different women. I mean, I can relate with so much of it myself. I have always been, the bigger the goal, the higher the achievement, the harder I run, the more I go for it, the more it is. And it's just, for so long, I couldn't figure out what it was. I remember at one time, like in my 30s, I actually thought that was such a great thing. Like, oh my gosh, I operate like a machine. Like, I don't even know what this is, like, extraordinary. I can't believe I'm able to do this kind of stuff. The superwoman cape. Like I used to always say, like, I just wear the superwoman cape and I'm able to handle all of this stuff. But there was a part of me always very, very small in there at the beginning that was like, why does this always have to be so much? Why is it so over the top? Why is it so heavy? Why is it so dang hard all of the time? And then when I hit 40, I had a really traumatic incident happen in my life with my dad. And that's when everything just kind of stopped. And it's like I was in such a way that I couldn't have overperformed for anything, any point, any reason at all, because breathing and functioning was taking everything that I had. So I can understand a lot of this. I mean, coming from a caregiver standpoint and from a woman that was in corporate America, it's it's so hard because it's almost like I remember so many times where if I wasn't being productive, I felt like I was lazy.
Absolutely. Yeah. We wear it almost as a badge of honor in that
Mhm.
over functioning, right? Of I can do all of that. But really, what you found out, what I found out, and probably what a lot of other women are finding out, and men too, I don't want to exclude them, is that you can't do that forever. Your system wasn't designed for that. And, I was seeing this exact same pattern in the women who were coming to me for massage therapy. They would come to me for tight neck and shoulders and back pain and just generally depleted. And they would get on the table, and even in this quiet, serene, supportive, loving space, they couldn't fully relax. They couldn't take a
Mhm.
breath without their body tightening up again. And it took me a while to catch on because I was thinking that as a therapist, I wasn't doing my job. I wasn't good at it. There must be something that I'm not doing right. But it wasn't until I really started to understand how the nervous system worked that when that activation is in process, you can't relax when you feel responsible for everything and everyone around you, and you're still carrying that all of that responsibility.
Yeah, I remember the first time in a long time, and I was starting to kind of feel like I really got to start working on some of this stuff because I knew it wasn't sustainable. I mean, I was actually having heart palpitations. My job was such a high demand job that I finally went in, and when I went in, my blood pressure was 239 over 189. And I was talking to the nurse the same way that I'm talking to you. And I remember going, holy shit, is that my blood pressure? And she said, yeah, because I had been in nursing in my earlier years. And she goes, yeah. And I said, I having a heart attack? And she's like, yeah, I don't know. And she's kind of looking at me like, how is this woman like so calm? And they opened up the bay because I think they thought that I was having a heart attack. I think I was in so much like panic and overload and overstressed and just under rusted. And it just all hit me at one time. So I knew, obviously, this is not a sustainable life for anybody.
Wow. Yeah, I see that in so many people that it takes these major physical signals from the body to get us to wake up, and it's kind of at that breaking point that you can't continue doing that. And what I had started noticing in myself and my clients is what you had just hit on too, is that it wasn't just this one stressful situation. It wasn't this phase that, that you're going through this one thing. It was this build up, and that it has become a pattern that your nervous system has learned. And in that chronic activation of the nervous system, then all of these other things start to fall into place, that you end up in this adaptation that puts you in a constant state of scanning, of bracing, preparing for what could go wrong.
Yeah, it's terrifying. It's actually a very, very terrifying way to live if you're experiencing that and you're listening and you're like, "Oh my gosh, I am experiencing this. We need to have you talk to somebody. Reach out to somebody close to you. Reach out to Tanya, reach out to somebody because this is not it. This is not the way to live. This is not, I finally realized that I had never even really been living in my whole entire life. I had really been surviving. I had literally just been, because there was no, the joy was like here, like, oh, everything's so great. But it was scary for me all the time because I could feel I was running out. And then I thought, what happens if I run out? Like, what happens to me? What happens to the people around me and everything I'm trying to do? And then it turned into like a fear-based change almost.
Right. Sometimes that's what has to happen. And so often, and I'm sure you were experiencing this as well, that from the outside, you looked like you were doing great. You were superwoman, you're doing everything, but on the inside was telling a whole different story. And that soul level fatigue and that inability to fully settle takes its toll, and it just doesn't affect how you're feeling physically and emotionally. It starts to affect how you live, right? You've probably started changing your habits and things that you might want to do, not doing. And so that clarity of knowing what to do, making the right decisions becomes harder to access. Like you mentioned, those decisions get heavier. And then you start to second guess yourself. And then that creates this loop that you live in instead of moving forward in your life. And the hard maybe the hardest part of all of it, and I know I experienced this, was that we stay longer in that than what we need to, not because it's a choice, but because you don't know what's happening because you're inside of the pattern. And I think that's one of the most detrimental pieces.
Yeah, and it was interesting for me because it was like I didn't want anybody to know. I
Oh,
didn't want anybody to know, and I wouldn't have really looked at it as like being prideful, but it was more like, what are people going to think if I can't accomplish all of these things I've been accomplishing? What if it comes off as like I was a fake? Like I've been running this business for 6 years. I was the fourth highest person in a company. I mean, everything felt like from the outside, wow. Darcie is somebody who grew up in a traumatic household, and she's technically somebody that could be part of a statistical group of people that doesn't make it. But look at her. Look at how good she's doing. And it was a weird thing because it was like people's excitement for me fed into what I was lacking from my childhood. But then I was overproducing so much. I couldn't even enjoy any of the good things that were coming to me because I was so exhausted I couldn't even appropriately receive anything.
For sure. Yeah, that makes total sense because your nervous system can't just reset on its own, that you've got all of these deep patterns that it takes consistency and determination and time to start to unwind. And, I remember standing there when my daughter was coming out of one of her sessions. And I was at my wits' end. My nerves were frayed, worrying about her, trying to figure out what else I could do and how I could help her more because I was really nervous about this slippery slope that she had been on. And I asked the practitioner, I said, "So, what can I do to support her?" And she said something that I'll never forget and caught me totally off guard. And this is for those people that I think find themselves in the similar position as me, too, that I think it's really important. And she said to me to support her, to be of most help to her, of which we all want to be supportive of our people around us and we want to have impact. She said, "You need to start with yourself." I was like, what the F? Like,
Yeah.
yeah, because I
I
don't know
knew
what
you
your
were going to
audience is.
say
I
that
think,
too. I knew because that's the whole, you can't pour from an empty cup. And when I would hear that, I would just be like, I hate that until you realize.
right, right. And I was looking at, no, 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 she's the one struggling. She needs support. I have been giving all of my energy, time, and focus everything to her to make sure that she was okay, and then once she launches, then I can take care of myself. But there wasn't even a thought of me in that equation. And what I can see now that I didn't know then was going back to that over responsibility, that person being the person that holds everything together, that I was quietly leaving myself out of it. So yeah, you can't pour from that empty cup at all. And I talk to my clients quite a bit because we want to be of service and we want to have impact and bring our message and our work or whatever it is out to the world. But if you've been depleted, there's just no resources in your physical body, in your emotional, mental body, in your energetic body to even carry that out.
Yeah, the way that I needed this, like, whole, it's so interesting how help is so accessible to people now that want it. It's so fantastic. Like 20 years ago, I never would have thought, I mean, when we started coming out with little flip phones and stuff, everything is so now you could just ask the box to bring you something and it brings it. It's so different. But I have, and people will say, I just got done taking care of my dad after 3 years and 8 months of him being home with us. My husband and I were caregivers.
Oh,
He
wow.
was a survivor of a traumatic, well, he was shot at work. And the way he fell, he received a traumatic brain injury. And he spent 2 years almost in brain rehab as we tried to get as much of him back as we could. And he came home to my husband and I as a 24-hour care patient. So we did all PT, all speech, all, OT, showered, bathroom, fed, and we did everything 90% or better by ourselves. We had very little time, very little breaks. It was the hardest, most rewarding thing I've ever done in my entire life. But that was coming off of already being in a place of I was already like stressed. I was already overloaded with stuff. So when my dad got shot, my parents had been divorced for a long time. But I remember my mom telling me I was so afraid that you were not going to make it. I thought your dad was going to make it because your dad's the strongest man I've ever known, but I was really worried about you because the stress that you had already been under and then this happened to your dad. So a year ago, finally, I'm like, this is too much. I gotta figure this out. I need to ask for help. It's okay to ask for help. I need to figure out who I trust with my dad so Eric and I can start taking some more breaks because we deserve to have that. But I'm not going to make it. I can feel it in my whole entire body. I'm like, people would be like, when's the last time you felt rested? I'm like, I don't know, like 2005, like
Oh,
a very, very long time ago. And I've been working on that. And then my dad passed away 6 months ago.
oh,
So as I'm getting into this, like, this is our rhythm and this is what we should do, now I'm walking through currently the hardest thing that's ever happened to me in my entire life while rebuilding my identity and trying to figure out, like there's so many things that go into being grounded in your healing. This healing is not an easy thing to do. It takes time and it takes dedication. So, I mean, it's worth it, but buckle up.
absolutely. And I always say the one thing that it takes, the one that shift point comes from courage. And that's exactly what I'm hearing from you, Darcie, is that you had the courage to take that first step, to reach out, right? That it's at that level of courage, then that hope starts to come in after that. And you're right, it's not easy, it's messy. When I went, started doing my inner work, I don't want to say it was a shit show, but it was hard. And,
Mhm.
but what I did notice is as I started healing myself, and my daughter at that point was becoming more self sufficient. So I was moving into a little bit different phase of life, but everyone around me started shifting as well because I wasn't in a reactive state. I wasn't coming to every situation depleted and in that survival mode. I was able to see a higher perspective, to see how I can best serve in this situation without going back to old patterns of maybe enabling or all these other over responsibility like we've been talking about. And so I think that if, anybody's listening, if they can just find a bit of courage to take that step, like you said, get connected with somebody who can help you, whether it's me, it's somebody else. But now that we have all of this care and resources at our fingertips, either through a phone or a computer, I think it takes a lot of that intrepidation and getting over some of that shame that you can have a bit of courage to step out of that. And I'm going to say that coming from the other side of outside, coming through the other side of that is that it's so worth it, right? And we're never really done with our work. We're never done healing because you learn new lessons and then you have this wisdom that when you come through that lesson again, you come through it with a higher level of awareness and a different wisdom. You go, oh, I see this. Now I'm learning this. So I say it does get easier and it's so well worth it because you've got so much of your life to live, right? I turned 50 earlier this year and I was so freaking excited to turn 50. I was like, woohoo!
Yes.
30s and 40s are done. And now I feel that entering that point in my life is where all of that integration of
Mhm.
wisdom and lessons learned so that I can really have the impact I was meant to in the world and help people out of that place of suffering and that looping and all of the stuff that we've been talking about that keeps us buried, that keeps us small, and that keeps us from really shining our light.
Right. And I mean, that's why the whole slogan here is this is the place we come to become unstuck from trauma and stuck in healing. Because you're going to be stuck somewhere. You're either going to be stuck in the bad stuff that's happening or you're going to be stuck in healing. And life is going to continue to life. I would be a fool to say, well, this is the last time I'm going to go through something that hurts me or is traumatic because of what happened with my dad. I mean, who knows what life is going to bring this way, you know? But
Mhm.
I think it's so important too for women to know, and men, you're never too old to start the progress of taking your life back, taking that healing back, starting a new pathway in your life. I mean, when I never would have thought I was going to be a podcast host, that was never on my radar in my whole entire life. And the next thing you know, I start healing, and God says, podcast, share all of it, help other people, just help them. So I said, okay. And I've been doing it now. And I cannot believe the weight that's been taken off of me by saying, a lot of you have followed me for a long time and must have thought I got brought up in this really nice type of environment because I appear to be somebody who's grounded and has it together. When in fact, at 4 years old, I watched my dad almost kill my mom. You know, my dad tried to break wicker furniture with my body when I was 13 years old. I grew up in a really lifetime movie type of traumatic childhood. Not just a little bit, it was when is it going to happen because it's going to happen. So I was already dealing with that. And then all of this happens with my dad. But it, you know, when you do really start to get your bearings, I feel like when you go through healing, that you should get some type of like ninja belt. Like there should be colors that you get because now it's like, okay, life. Okay, you think you're gonna throw some shit at me? I've already been through some of it. I'm ready. I put my black belt on. Like, okay.
I love that. I love that your spiritual warrior belts. That's great.
Well, the other thing is, tell me a little bit about because I know what my experience was as I started working on myself and what that looked like from the outside people around me. Like I had some people that didn't make it into my current journey with me. I had some people that were, oh, she's changed and who does she think she is type of thing. How was your experience as you started to heal yourself?
That's a great question. Because I had kept myself small for so long, my world was fairly small, and I'm still a fairly small circle people in the way that I have my few close friends, but we go deep, right? I like the depth. I like to have that, and so I think, there's a lot of different moving parts to that because I didn't, there was nobody in my life that fell away that said, oh my gosh, what you're doing isn't okay. I think there was a lot of energy around, oh my gosh, she's doing this. And I see that some days she's not great. I can see she's struggling. She doesn't want to go do these things. And, one of my good friends, would be really encouraging of, I can see what you're going through and I can see you're doing this. And I was doing it in a very structured container as I was learning to facilitate healing, shamanic healing, and breath work for others. And what I learned is that you can't help other people where you haven't been yourself. You can't help people in those areas. You can't take them as deep. You can only take them as deep as far as you've gone. And so I was going through it, working through all of that. And I think what the people around me saw was my true self emerging, right? They were witness of, oh, here she's speaking up. She's actually saying what she wants to do. She's doing these things that would be more outgoing. And I can tell you 10, 15 years ago that I would have never been in this podcast having a chat with you. I wouldn't be doing workshops. I wouldn't be doing all of these things that I'm doing in this external way if I hadn't done that healing to be able to pull that through. So it was messy. I had people who had my back, people who, and still to this day, and my husband, it doesn't do this work, so he doesn't understand it. I can talk to him about it and hope that as I share my experiences with people who haven't been there, that it's a spark. It's a spark of recognition, a spark of hope, of something to get that started if you're feeling stuck, like you said, and you're just in that place that you're ready to do it. And really, you're just at your end of your rope of I'm done living this way, and knowing that you can't live your life that way anymore. And I see it more and more. It starts happening around 40 years old, of whether, it's 38, 35. For me, it was closer to that. And for some people, they're still in those deep roles of responsibility and caregiving and being the super person, that they don't see that until they're in their 50s, maybe 60s. And in that, it's still the same pattern. We're just doing it with more on the load than what we
Yeah.
do is than when we're a little bit younger.
Yeah. I absolutely love that you had people that were so wise around you to be encouraging and like kind, you know. For me,
Mhm.
I think I taught my people around me how to treat me by what I had allowed. I was a classic enabler, and I didn't realize I was an enabler until the ripe age of 39. So that was really great. But as I started to realize that no was the final, answer, I don't owe everybody an explanation of everything I'm doing in my life. It's okay to put myself first sometimes. It started to piss some people off. Like they were so used to coming to me, and at the drop of a hat, I don't care what time it was, what it was you needed, I was there. Actually, to the point of where I had to leave a friendship in last year. So I lost my dad in October, and my best friend and I had to cut ways right before Christmas because I just couldn't. I had 3 conversations about I'm not getting into these conversations with you that activate me anymore. I'm trying to keep my blood pressure down and stay calm. I'm going through the hardest thing in my life, and we're making this all about you. And I'm not okay with that. And I had this conversation so many times to where I finally had to say, I don't think we've evolved in the same direction together. I think I'm evolving into who I'm authentically supposed to be. And unfortunately, she wasn't. So, it was weird for me because I don't really like confrontation, because I grew up learning confrontation is like I'm gonna hit you. Like I'm gonna get you before you get me. And I've learned how to say, hey, I don't really enjoy the way you said that to me, and it was kind of offensive. Maybe we can have a conversation about how that could be, talked about a little bit better. And now people understand me differently. So it's been a journey, like we say, it is. It's just everybody's journey is different, but the fact is get on the journey. Get on the journey of healing. Get on the journey of taking care of yourself. I'm interested to hear if somebody is listening and they're like, "Oh, I really like everything that Tanya is saying. This sounds really great. Could a man or a woman, if they're interested in your services, what kind of things are you working with people on? What are you coaching them on?"
So I'm coaching them on everything that we've talked about already, that baseline activation. I bring in a variety of tools, because what I learned in that bodywork experience where I was seeing people coming in and just wanting to work on the physical is that it has to take multiple it's the nervous system effects are across multiple layers, and it goes so deep, and that it's more about the holistic approach of looking at the nervous system, looking at the emotional conditioning, the stored stress and energy patterns, and even the way we talk to ourselves and we relate to ourselves. And that's really what's going to get you to those deeper results. And that deeper healing is recalibrating the system. And so my approach brings in, like I said, nervous system regulation, practices to reconnect to the body and internal awareness. I love doing emotional processing through EFT tapping. I teach my clients about their energy bodies, about their aura, about their chakras, and how all of those systems hold on to all of that energy of all of that dysfunction and pain. And I teach them how to work with their energy so that they know what they're holding on to. Is that theirs or is it somebody else's? So there's a lot of boundary work. And I even use human design to help people start to trust their own internal signals by revealing and discovering what they are here on this planet to do and what their purpose is. And oftentimes there's this recognition and validation of things that we have thought were our flaws, or I'm like this and I don't know why I'm like this, that human design opens up and really looks at that in a really beautiful way. And so I don't rely on just one of those things. My system is based on bringing all of those together inside of a safe, supportive, and structured, and most importantly, repeatable process. And one of my biggest pillars in my work is that I am not the guru. I'm not giving you the answers. I guide you to your own answers, and I'm there to support you, to walk with you, and to show you how to continue to maintain that and how to get results even outside of our coaching sessions and our healing sessions, so that it's not just about, oh, I can only do this work with somebody, because I'm the catalyst. We get it going and then the work continues outside of that. And if somebody's interested in learning more about it, I do offer a back to you session. And that's a focused one-on-one session where we look at what's going on beneath your patterns, and not just what you've been able to think and bringing in the mental mind of what you've been able to explain. And it takes a bit of that analyzing, that guessing, so that you can get out of, takes that away so you can get out of that looping and really see what's going on and something that you can shift. And I offer that at no cost, because my heart and soul is about helping women. But if you're a man listening to this and it resonates, I'm open to it if it's aligned to working with men. But really bringing in that peace and that clarity that we are often missing. And you can find that on my website at TanyaWardMidlife.com/book now, and you can sign up for that free session if it resonates.
I absolutely love that. And I know that my listeners, because I talk about this quite often, I became an NLP practitioner very recently. And I always say, when you find a good coach, when they're not trying to take credit for everything that you're doing, because we're simply the guide. It's so rewarding to know that people are being guided and they have the ability to do the work. They have the ability to do that internal stuff. And we're just simply guiding, and as far as men have been, hello, men, they have been listening a little bit and I love it. I actually had my first NLP session with a man a couple weeks ago that is a retired sheriff. And we worked on his anger, his inability to be able to control his anger. And it was so freeing to watch the stoic, hard jaw at the beginning of it to kind of like smiling and cheeky at the end of the conversation. I was like, yeah, like, because it's so rewarding, now that I'm on this walk and really know me, because I'm my own guide. So I know me and I know what I need and how I need to self-love myself and all of the things. But opening that door up for somebody else and watching them just run with it is forever going to be such a special feeling.
Absolutely. I wholeheartedly agree with that. And when somebody connects with their inner healer and connects with that and starts to do that work, the impact reaches far beyond what we can even imagine. Like I had talked a little bit about in my story, that my healing process started to affect those around me because I was acting different. And I always see it. I kind of see visuals when I talk about this stuff, but I almost see it as like cogs in the machine. That once you start to turn, you can't help but connect with another cog, and they start to shift. They start to think different, and that is a ripple effect that just goes far into the cosmos, back in time, forward in time, and really you don't know the impact you have on people, which I hope that once we take, as we're taking our last breath on this earth, as we get to see that impact of all of those lives that you've touched. And, if you're listening, know that, if you're feeling stuck, and it's not because you're doing something wrong, it's often because your nervous system is just adapted for so long, and it became a pattern that has then created the pressure. And once you start to reduce that pressure, then the clarity and the energy, your self-trust, it doesn't have to be created. It just naturally comes back. And I know this because I've gone through it myself and I've seen it in my clients as well. And I go to sleep with a full heart every night, knowing that I've had a positive impact on, even if it was just one person, even if it was just on my daughter, my family, knowing that my impact, something I said, I did, what I guided, helped somebody shift something that they needed to shift that day and heal.
Yes, what a beautiful conversation, Tanya.
Mhm.
Thank you so much for sitting here with us today at the School of Hard Knocks. I want to make sure that everybody knows that you can reach Tanya at TanyaWardMidlife.com, Facebook, Instagram, Tanya Ward Midlife Coach, YouTube, Substack, and LinkedIn.
Yeah, I'm
She's
everywhere.
everywhere. Woo! I
Yeah,
love that so much.
definitely hop over to Substack. That's where I'm starting to create my deeper work, my longer content. As you've probably guessed, I go deep, and that platform provides that nice space for that, where I can have longer content. I can bring in shorter, deeper pieces without all of the noise from the other socials. So that's really where I'm headed. But yes, please reach out on any of those channels. I'm happy to connect.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for sitting here with us today. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Darcie.
Yes, absolutely. All right, School of Hard Knocks, you know what to do after you listen to this episode. Go and find Tanya on all of the platforms. Follow, like, love, share, comment, do all of the things. She's shared some really great nuggets here with you. Definitely reach out to her if you are somebody that needs coaching, assistance with finding somebody to guide you to get to your better spot. Tanya would love to help you do that. I always tell you guys as well, like there's more than enough room at the top of this mountain for everybody. So share, like, love, do all of the things. And as always, when you are walking with God, healing is always possible. I'll see you guys in the next episode. I'd like to thank you for sharing your time with me today. And I'm so proud of you for stepping into your healing journey. Please share this with every single person that you know. I'm here to make the biggest impact possible, and I can only do that with you by my side. I hope you hit that follow button and you save me to your library so you never miss an episode. We just took another break out of your wall, and remember, with God, healing is always possible. I look forward to seeing you on the next episode.